All right, so tonight I am here with my little bro, not by blood, but by sorority slash fraternity, Taylor, who is applying for MBA programs. Also not in my field, but there are still, commonalities of the application process that I can help out with. So as the wonderful big sis I am helping with I think today we want to kind of go through some of the prompts and like how to best outline, which is, something I also mention is good to do before writing anything. So yeah. And this is like, I rarely also talk to like my actual friends. So this will be fun.
A lot of the MBA prompts are only one essay, and I originally thought they were two essays. So it
And
looks like,
they're short too, right? Like,
yeah, they're like 500 words is the longest I've seen for them.
and there's no like general personal statement. It's just like short.
A lot of them, I think almost all of them, give like an optional essay. So it might be good to throw that in there.
Yes, you have to do the optional essay.
Yeah. So
Yeah, I'm sure there's still stuff that you can kind of like use for each application over like and just kind of like modify it. But yeah, no, things are changing. I've been noticing that a lot of people have been reaching out to me about the PhD applications for public health. And it used to also just be one personal statement, but now apparently they're now asking for a separate like personal statement, which is a personal thing, and then a more like statement of purpose, which is like your academic, your research,
interesting.
and two separate long statements. And I'm like, oh my God, that's a lot of work to write two statements like that. I'm glad I applied when I did, and there was only one statement. Okay, while Taylor is pulling up his stuff, I'll give it a brief intro. So Taylor is also a graduate from UC Berkeley. That's how we met each other. Through his fraternity, there was like a big sis little bro program. So I wonderfully got paired with Taylor. And even through all these years, it's been like a decade now, we still stay in touch.
Yeah, I got very lucky. I don't think anybody I know still talks to their big sis from that
Oh,
class.
that makes me happy.
Yeah, me too. It's kind of nice that we.
Did you figure out your list of schools that you're applying
Yeah, so
to
I
this year? Yeah.
I narrowed them down.
So what I would do with these essays is I would like kind of like what you're doing here, but I would actually move it over to like a Word doc,
Well,
um, like all the prompts, and then start outlining like your responses for each one.
okay.
And then what you can do is see the commonalities of like what you're outlining. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So like the bullets, yeah, I can, yeah, just do. Yeah, this is like tough because they're all kind of like different.
They're all a little bit different, which is really annoying. Um, I mean, like, this is
Yeah, like
kind
so essay two for the first school is pretty similar to
yeah,
Cornell's first essay, you
right,
know? So it's like that's the kind of thing you want to see. And then you can kind of group those together and write something similar for both, you know? That's
right.
what you want to start doing. So you're not like literally writing a new, fresh essay for each prompt.
Carnegie Mellon has the same one kind of too as Cornell.
Yeah. See, that's what I'm saying. Like some of these prompts are, they all, because like they're not gonna all be wild card prompts. Like they need to be able to like have some sort of like standard way of like evaluating you all.
Yeah.
Um, so I would just write sort of like a statement that sort of might work for this. Like, yeah, like what are your like what do you essentially it's like what do you hope to do with
The
your
MBA.
MBA? Yeah,
Yeah.
I feel like that is kind of like a pretty generic prompt.
And then just apply it. So you want me to write that and then apply it, or do you want me to like still do each prompt as its own thing and then just make one super prompt or one super outline? What do you think is more effective?
I would probably still outline each
Okay.
prompt. I mean, you're just outlining like bullets,
Yeah.
short things. Outline each prompt and just make sure that like it is similar enough, because you also don't you also don't want the school to realize that you are submitting something ridiculous. So like
Yeah.
and these are short, they're 500 words, that's not a lot.
Some of them
So
are like 300, like I think.
yeah,
Yeah. Like for Berkeley, it's like 300 each, which is pretty crazy.
yeah, it's because they want you to like really talk about yourself in a really short period of time.
Yeah. Speed dating.
Yeah, you have to make it count.
How long is your personal statement for public health?
1,000 words, yeah.
That's not even that long, but still.
But I only had to write one. You have to write like 5 at minimum from what
Yeah.
I see.
With what makes you feel alive, which is actually a pretty cool prompt. I'm not gonna lie. I do enjoy that.
Yeah, I already told you should talk about how you run and your marathon training. And then so that's the key thing, is that no matter what, you need to tie everything back to why you're getting an MBA. Even when it's what you think is like a random prompt, like what makes you feel alive. Don't start going off on this tangent about how like, I don't know, playing video games makes you feel alive. And then you just like talk about your video game obsession for 300 words and you never connect it back to like, oh, this has made me think analytically, because you have to multitask and strategize in order to accomplish whatever in the video game,
Yeah.
similar to an MBA, blah 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 blah. Like you need that thread, like, so always connect everything back, no matter what the prompt is, to like why you're getting the MBA. And that should always be like a bullet in all of your outlines.
Okay.
Yeah, and the outline literally, like, another thing, that another tip that I would give you that I don't use enough, but I want to start using more, is like, are you someone that has like writer's block? Like, do you have a hard time like moving your brain
Yes.
into your, okay, so the speech to text function on words like notes is actually quite like, it's really good now. Like you don't, it works really well. So if I were you, like if you're having trouble even just like writing the bullets or whatever, I would recommend just like looking at the prompt, thinking about it, and then hitting that like speech to text button and then just talk and word vomit everything and talk for like, I don't know, however long you can, and just you'll get all the words on the page or all your kind of like everything in your mind. And then it'll be so much easier to go from that to cleaning it up and getting it into a nice form.
That's a good point.
Yeah. So that's another thing I would recommend. You could even start with like a couple bullets of outline and then do the speech to text thing. And then that way you have the outline to kind of like, so that way you're not just like literally ranting for a long time. Right. So yeah, I would recommend doing a couple small bullets, then doing the speech to text if you have trouble with writing and writing things into sentences. Yeah.
Yeah, with 300 words, I'm thinking what it's going to be, maybe intro paragraph, concluding paragraph, 2 body paragraphs, or 3 tiny ones.
I wouldn't even think about it in paragraphs yet. I would just like write and just keep track of like how many, like 300 words, is that like one page? Is that even half a page? Also, don't feel like you have to write it from like paragraph 1, paragraph 2, paragraph. Like you can just like, the first sentence is going to be hard. Like you don't have to write the opening, like you can just kind of like get your thoughts down first and then come back and write like a good intro later.
Okay.
Yeah.
Single space, it's half a page.
Yeah, that's what I thought. 300. Yeah. I really would try to recommend that you think of ways to make yourself stand out. Um, like use the more bold kind of prompt, like I don't know.
Yeah.
I encourage you to like use that kind of like more provocative language that's really
Yeah.
gonna stand
Okay.
out. Because
Do
I
you
feel like
throughout or just for that first one? For like
uh
first paragraph.
yeah, just the beginning. Yeah, you
Okay.
don't need it, you don't want it throughout the whole thing because then that's just too much. But you want a really good hook because I think, especially I feel like with MBA applicants, like they know how to like the essays I read or like the personal statements I read are all pretty like they're pretty like you're supposed to just describe your research experience. But obviously, like when
Mhm.
you see something come like and it's like very personal, like it's very
Yeah.
heartwarming, something like I don't know, like and that's for like research statements. So you're competing against people who are submitting these like short, witty things, you know?
Yeah.
So like you want to like I think that's why they make it so short because like everyone has to get to the point and find a way to stand out fast.
Yeah, the storytelling element's definitely going to be interesting.
Yeah. But I can help with that. You know, again, I won't know how to like do any of the businessy stuff, but hey, if you need advice on how to make a story sound a little bit more enticing, I can definitely help with that.
I
Um,
mean, that's the interesting part about this prompt is like it doesn't seem like they even care about business. They just want to know what is the impact that you're going to have on the community. Like the prompts lends itself to good storytelling and not just like what metrics did you hit while you were working at your company? Because that's so hard to compare.
yeah. I mean, I do think it's important to talk about what you want. Like in any application for any program, it's really important to discuss like why is it that you even need to go through this program to do
Yeah.
what you do? Because one could say like you could totally just keep working and you'd be like
Yeah.
you don't need your MBA to do. How is this MBA going to like elevate you to the next level? And they need to hear that. Um, so I don't know. I would really think hard about like what is it that you're going to gain out of this MBA. Pick sort of like one key thing, and then that can be sort of like the story that you tell. Here's like an example, like
Yeah.
from PhD to my current postdoc, everyone's always asking like, okay, well, like, are you just doing the same thing that you did during your PhD? And I'm like, I mean, yes, in a way, but like this postdoc does need to like do something and elevate me to the next level. And I've really decided that like, okay, while I was at Harvard, I was on a clock and I didn't have a lot of time to finish my dissertation. So I did a lot of just like regular data analysis. But like now that I'm like postdoc and I have time, like I want to do more like community work and like actually involve like community stakeholders and talk to people and do that more in my research. And, you know, like I would just like set a goal for yourself like that. Like, is there
Yeah.
something that you can do in the MBA that is going to be a little bit different, even though,
Yeah.
you know, like, even though for me, I am still spending most of my time like doing a lot of the same kind of research and
Yeah.
like, writing papers, like, but I do have this goal. And like when people ask me now, like, oh, like, what are you hoping to gain out of your postdoc? Now I can actually say, like, oh, yeah, I want to learn how to do more community-based research, and that's a goal of mine. And I didn't get that training when I was in my PhD program. So you should try to come up with that kind of similar story of like, okay, you learned all this while working, but what is it that this MBA can do for you that you'll never be able to get at your job, you know? So I would,
Yeah.
like, I don't know, I would look at courses that you can take, like I would maybe talk about like leadership. That's definitely something, right, that MBA programs give. Um, you know, um, yeah, the opportunity to network, that kind of stuff. I would really talk about leadership and like that look, you know, maybe watch other YouTubers who are influencers in the MBA world. I'm sure there's more of them than there are of me. Because sometimes it's hard, for us to sit down and be like,
Yeah,
I want to do this.
it's
And
so hard.
it's okay to like listen to other people's thoughts and have that inspire you?
Yeah, it's such an imposter syndrome. Like you hear these people with incredible stories. Um, and I'm just like, wow, that's like very special. But I think I just need to find what is unique. And then it's funny because when I talk to people who are early in their careers about my career, they're like, wow, like that's you've seen and you've done so much. And it's like really interesting that you think your story is so boring, but other people are like, wow, like that's such a it's full of ups and downs. And I'm just like, I don't know, I was just living the past like 6 years since I graduated. It doesn't seem like that much of a story.
Well, I don't even know that much about your work life, but from what I've gleaned just on the couple of things you share with me, I agree. I think your story is great. Like, you, I think anyone that doesn't have a linear story, it's always,
Yeah.
and you don't have that linear story. And I think being able to weave that in and show that you've failed and learned from your failures and grown from that. And then, you know, that's what people want to hear about. No one wants to hear about the person who always got the, A plus and was, always class president and always the most popular kid and always succeeded. Like, woohoo, that's great. They'll probably get into a good business school too, but it's like,
Yeah.
it's also really impressive when you hear about, you know, how far people have come or, their resilience.
Yeah.
So yeah. Why do you want to get an MBA?
I think the real reason is because after I got let go by that one company, I realized that, and I was 24, 25 at the time. And I was so like had blinders on in terms of what I was doing that the decision I made was made without looking at like what the overall like company objective was and understanding that like, oh, my decision can impact multiple departments. Um, so I think I want to go to B school so I have a better understanding of like what does strategy look like from like 30,000 feet to your point. Like that's something that you can kind of only get by going to business school and understanding like what are the different areas of the business, how do they all come together into one company. Whereas if you just keep working in your day-to-day life, like sure, you can advance slowly and become like VP, and then at some point you're going to have conversations with other departments and you'll learn that way. But I think it's just much easier to understand like how the business runs from the top down instead of like when you're working like me, you're always looking bottoms up.
That sounds like a great thing you can write about.
Like my real reason was okay, if I go to business school, I will have a better understanding of how like engineering plays a role with marketing, and that will help me more easily bridge the gap between that career transition between one to another. And like business school does help with career transitions.
I think you should combine those two things and talk
Okay.
about that but you're still missing the piece of like, I guess like once you get your MBA,
Right. Yeah.
how is that then going to benefit the outside world to be a better place, I guess? Is that what the prompts are
That is
asking
a good
for?
one.
That's like such a I don't know if my public health mind is just like
No, I think it's a great
everything you
question.
do must help the world, but I don't know if that's what the prompts are asking. I forget what they said exactly, but I guess I think that could be your spin is like, so how is your MBA then going to like help the community, help people, help the outside world be, yeah, or companies, improve.
I mean, my knee-jerk reaction, and this is very interesting, and I think you'll like this a lot, is you know how I majored in conservation resource studies,
Yeah, I
which
remember you did
every
like
time I took
environmental
an
stuff.
interview coming out of Berkeley, it was always like, oh, interesting. Yeah, like I was in the College of Natural Resources in Berkeley. Like our college was lined with like oak trees. So every time you walked in there, it was like people, like granola people. And I loved every second of it, which was interesting. And I think I will probably write to the fact that at the tail end of my career, what I'd love to do is combine my knowledge of marketing, my knowledge of business, and like work for a nonprofit who needs somebody who understands how like that structure works in the private world. And then like, how do you apply that to nonprofit organizations? Specifically, like forest service and like things that I'm interested in.
I think that's a wonderful response. I think that's too far in the future though. Like
It
I
is
think,
super far in the future. So
yeah.
I don't
So
know.
it's I and in an essay where you have 300 words, like you might be able to write a half sentence about that. So
Right.
like what's your more like what can you do more immediately?
I mean, my other answer would be to help people from like non-traditional backgrounds, like myself, get into like tech or business school, or like help them kind of get a leg up or like get to parity with other people who like I guess come from an economic background, in the sense that like they study econ at Berkeley, whereas I study conservation resource studies, and I like had to get internships by myself and explain why I was going for a marketing internship when I was studying trees. So I think that would be interesting. I've always liked helping the underdogs in that sense. Kind of like what you're doing.
I know. I was gonna say I love this answer. Actually, this is great. I have my wheels spinning now. So you could totally frame it as I don't think you should call it like mentoring because that's not what people go to an MBA for. But
Right.
going back to that whole leadership thing of like,
Yeah.
okay, I want to get an MBA because it will put me in a place where I can be in leadership positions where I'm managing teams. I learn about how different, departments work, how they interact, etc. I myself will be transitioning from like a more marketing to a more engineering thing and going through that. I want to be able to, use my leadership skills or position or whatever that I get from being able to have the MBA to then help. And then exactly what you said, help other people who also want to like similarly do this kind of like career switch or want to learn more about something different or help bridge that gap for other people who might not have all the resources laid out right now. I don't know.
Yeah.
You get what I'm saying though. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, just think more about this kind of stuff. We have this imposter syndrome. Sometimes we don't realize how amazing we are
Yeah.
ourselves
Yeah.
because it's just us. And like it it sometimes takes like taking a step back and really thinking about yourself and like what you've accomplished and what you've done.
Yeah.
Like it's really hard for someone to just like if I were to just look at you and be like, what are you passionate about? If someone were to say that to me, I'd be like, I don't know,
Yeah.
but like I know what I'm passionate about. But when you're really put on the spot, like you kind of sometimes forget some of the like details. It's like when you're in an interview and you walk out and you're like, oh darn, I could have given a better example for that. You know that feeling,
Yeah.
right? Like it's kind of that same thing here of like you don't want that happening for your application. So and like do more stuff like this. Like just talk to your friends, like talk to your family, like be like, what do you think? Why do you think I should go to business? Like, I don't know. Sometimes it's like nice to just like hear
Yeah.
other perspectives.
Yeah.
Like even in just our conversation, we're like, wow, I guess you're gonna talk about mentoring people. Like, did you think you were gonna do that before today? In your application? Probably not. So
Right. To your point, I'm gonna outline all the different essays, and then I'll write outlines to that specific prompt, because maybe that will have different storylines. And then we'll
yeah,
have like all the different storylines that we have available to us to choose from.
yes.
Um,
Yeah, I think the way to go, get all the prompts onto one doc and then start outlining all of the different prompts. What the hell is this?
that's amazing. I
How
don't
did
know.
that? Okay, on this other call that I was having, like I made some hand motion and then all these balloons started going everywhere. And I was like, what the fuck did I just, okay.
That's
Well, yeah,
hilarious.
I was like, oh my God. Anyway, so get all the prompts onto one document and go through them one by one separately first and do the outline. And then
Okay.
maybe with like a highlighter or something, like, I mean, like a virtual highlighter, like try to like
Got
use
it.
different colors to be like, okay, like these prompts are kind of the same, these prompts are kind of like, and then yeah, like I said, then maybe there's like three stories that you have to write, like one about why you want the MBA, one about like, what is your passion or like
Right.
something. And then the other is like, how do you want to help change the world? I don't know. Some things,
Yeah.
like you'll find out, you'll kind of see like, okay, there are a couple different, prompts. And then you can start writing at that point, and then it'll be less daunting than being like, oh my God, I have to write like 10 mini essays, then it's
Yeah.
it's really more, because you have your key stories, you know what they are, and you have your old application, that you definitely should find a way to use that somehow. Always repurpose things you've already written. So yeah.
Yeah. I think I'll reuse the part about me getting let go and just spruce that up so I don't lose
Yeah,
all of
start it
them.
with the way that with the quote that
Yeah,
yeah.
that was a good one.
Yeah,
Um,
I think the hardest part is like analysis paralysis. Like you don't want to
mm,
like get so stuck in like, okay, like what is the perfect bullet point for each thing?
yeah,
Don't
true.
like just get the words on the document. They don't have to be well formed. It doesn't
Okay,
matter. Like,
cool.
yeah, just like,
Takes a lot of pressure off. I'm excited.
yeah, I'm excited too. This is fun. Especially since you're someone who I feel like is very like you care about like self-growth and reflection. Like I think you might actually have a lot of fun doing this.
Yeah,
It can be like almost like a journaling slash
yeah,
like,
it's a cathartic exercise for
yeah,
me.
honestly, like if you're someone who likes to journal, you should just treat this like a
I love it.
journaling exercise. Like I'm not
Yeah,
even kidding. Like if that helps relieve some of the pressure off of like, okay, this is like a business school statement. All right. Well, thank you for this wonderful, productive call. I hope it sounds like you're walking away with some to-do items. And thank you for wanting to be featured on my channel.
yeah. Thanks for having me.